Hello, and welcome back to the ARK of E podcast. My name is Noah.
My name is Gavin.
And we're the Blanchard brothers. And this week, we're talking video games.
Yes.
Subject we haven't covered really in depth at any point on the network, so I thought it would be a good time. The Last of Us is out there kicking ass in the zeitgeist. And I thought it would be a fun time to take a look at some dream projects. Pitch you on a few ideas.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Are we playing and pitching?
Yeah.
Play and pitch.
Play and pitch.
Play and pitch with Noah and Gav. I think that's the name of this episode now.
Okay.
Okay. Whatever. So I told you to prepare 5.
Mm-hmm.
I did as well. We might have some crossover. We do have some similar tastes. And, yeah, we'll see where it goes. So we may have 10. We may have a shorter number. But we were looking at what are some games that, given that now, I mean, this is very much, I think, going to be a trendsetter. We had it. Halo was last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
You know, which didn't make as big of a dent, but everything is about IP these days. So obviously, video games are now finally, people are seeing that they're viable.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, conceivably, in the real world, what are some things we could pitch? Who would we want attached to them? What network should maybe be responsible? Who do we want a showrunner? Casting decisions, etc. I thought it'd be a little fun time.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, I do want to know, how you approached your list, but we are 7 episodes deep currently in the run of The Last of Us. It's going to be 9 episodes for the first season. You have seen 6 at this point?
Yes, I'm not watching the most recent one.
You're not up to date on the most recent one, but you know what happens in it.
Right.
Yes. We're both, I think, thoroughly enjoying it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I like it a lot.
Okay. Are you impressed with the expansions and changes in the adaptation?
Yeah, I mean...
Have you had any sticking points?
No, I mean,
Are you a goddamn homophobe, Gavin?
No.
Okay.
I've had many people tell me that with my hair now, I do sort of resemble Gay Bill. You know?
Is that what we're calling him now, Gay Bill?
I don't know. That's just what... I don't know. Anyway, Nick Offerman is what people told me.
Gay Bill and Gay Frank.
Well, no. Nick
Gaying
Offerman,
up my whole series. I came to watch some survivalist.
So, okay, me and Bex,
Sorry, go ahead.
we were watching that. She was like, hey, have you seen, because she watched it before I did. She was like, did you see this episode? I said, no. And she's like, it's pretty emotional.
Prepare yourself.
Prepared myself. I was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a twist with that. And she was like, I just can't get over Nick Offerman. I was like, well, the gay community has said if he wants to play gay anytime, he's more than welcome to, because he's that
He gets
good.
a pass. Yes.
Yeah, he gets a pass. And I said, that hair is not the only thing he's been in. And so she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you had the hair with Ron Swanson, but have you ever seen Devs? And she's like, no, what's that? So we literally in one day just killed Devs. And she was like, oh my God, amazing.
That's a lot to process.
It is. I tried to get her to understand, about midway through, she's like, I like it, but I'm not sure. And I was like, listen,
Just let Alex Garland cook for a little bit longer.
And you know what I found in doing that? Rewatching Devs with her led me into an entire Annihilation rabbit hole. There's 2 other books, and I don't know why I don't know, man. I can't wait for it. And right after that, I went and I watched Men. That's when
on Showtime?
Yes.
Right.
And I was like, this fucking guy.
What'd you think of that ending, bro?
Dude, are you fucking kidding me?
What'd I tell you? Never seen that before, have you?
No. But then for the friend to show up and you're like, oh shit. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. And of course she's, she didn't make it to Men, but I was like, well, you should probably watch this. She said, well, it's scary. I'm like, it's not, it's only if you think
it's a different beast entirely.
Oh yeah. The whole fucking tunnel sequence. Fucking unnerving.
Okay. That on a big screen.
Yeah.
When you can really see the depth, when just the figure stands up in the distance initially, it was the most sinking, chest clenching moment I had in a theater last year, probably.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Me and the 3 other people that were in there.
I mean, I got a little nervous myself, and mind you, like, I'm in a dark room by myself in a house, and I'm just kind of like, I don't. I mean, I don't have to turn it off right now. I could, and I just, it was unnerving, And this is from me who, like, I tried to watch. It took me 5 days, but I finally finished all of In Search of Darkness 3, because I'd watch it till I was like, okay, I think I remember, and like I'd fast forward. Okay, I remember this. I'm gonna leave it here, and I'll just recap a little bit and keep going. And I could fucking throw all three of those on and love it. But yeah,
Save all that for a co-captain's log
Yeah.
when we can get into what we've been watching.
yeah,
But yeah, so I vaguely presented this as like, give me your top 5 TV shows that you wanted to get the prestige TV treatment. And then when I started making my actual list, I was like, well, we don't necessarily have to stick to that.
Right.
So I expanded it. I'm going for a couple different styles.
okay.
So what did you do? Did you go with favorites? Did you go with what you think would actually get made?
I did I
it...
went with stuff that I thought had the best chance to try and bring people who may not have known about it to it, something that you could disguise as a brilliant new IP, because I know the times we live in. 60% of the people that I've talked to The Last of Us about did not know it was a video game to start out with,
Again, and we're talking about one of the most successful video game properties in the modern era.
Right.
And your general public is still like, oh, I think I've heard of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think you could easily, with the amount of military shows there are now, like SWAT, and they have a special Navy SEALs one, if you wanted to finally break down and say, okay, CBS, ABC, give me a Call of Duty TV show where we have several main guys that we kind of know from like Modern Warfare, and we're going to put them in a situation and we're going to run through the events of this game over like 3 series. Even like a TNT could probably do something like that.
Right.
Those are kind of tailor-made. They are more visual. I was trying to go for things that like maybe didn't necessarily hit the mark with like how they could be, move. I try to find things that weren't already movie-like.
Right, because notably, The Last of Us, very cinematic.
Yes.
Uncharted, another Naughty Dog game, very cinematic. Also recently adapted.
I have 2 or 3 that like, 2 of these are probably, 3 of them are before 2010, if I'm not mistaken. I needed to look at the last one and I have 2 that are more recent that you could, and I did put a few in there that are like recent that do lend itself to,
Well, yeah, I was just curious, but kick it off, I guess, if you want to. I mean, no particular order. It doesn't have to be unless you want it to be.
Okay. I'm going to do with like what I think would be my number 5. I'm going to start from 5 and move up to 1.
Go for it.
And it does have a lot of recency bias. And I just put anyone in this category because I feel like you could do a ton of stuff with it. But I think it would be amazing to get George R.R. Martin back to the small screen and give us an Elden Ring television show. It does lend itself. It is all about like your own particular choices, and you can kind of do anything. There is an overarching story that like if you get into the weeds with it, you're like, holy shit. So that does present a problem in terms of what storyline, what quest line, what are you going to do? But you do have that all encompassing thing of like, you could spend a 12 episode arc of like, and then I was trying to get into this castle and this thing came down on the bridge to it, and I had to fight it myself. And the battle could be, I would love it if they did like 1 episode that's just the battle, and it's kind of cut and shot like a Dragon Ball Z fight, where it's like one side back and forth, and it's just going on and on and on until you finally remember like, oh, wait a minute, we are in a world of magic. I can summon someone to help me, because I'm even thinking like, you do the whole thing of like, you're here, oh, but you're dead. And you're tarnished, You're trying to become the Elden Lord, but you're destined to fail over and over unless you can do these certain things right. Can you follow these helpful hints? Can you learn from these people that you meet along the way and like try to guide you? I think it'd be something that you could blend really easy with like the prosthetics and like real makeup of some of the people we've seen in The Last of Us, but also the CGI is off the board. You could literally do whatever you wanted with some of the creatures that you inhabit. I just love the idea of like actually on screen getting the depth of feel of like maybe you have like a big strong, I don't want to like not going with the Witcher vibes, maybe you have like a big strong Henry Cavill type.
I forgot to mention The Witcher, which has now been adapted.
Yeah.
And
So
people like that show. I have not watched any of it.
but you have that, but the thing you're fighting is like a giant,
So
just the monumental task of it all.
What network are you thinking? And
I'm thinking it would have to be Amazon.
Okay.
Because it wouldn't have to get the money from the tie-ins from all that, and it would have to be something that they could afford to pay for it. And if it doesn't do that well, which I mean, but I think there's already a built-in fan base that like it's like Dungeons and Dragons. I think when that Dungeons and Dragons one come out with Chris Pine, it's going to make a ton of money, just like the David Jones one did. But it wasn't here; it was overseas. So I think it's built up enough of that. Plus, if you say
Duncan
you have a
Jones.
George R.
Sorry,
David Jones. Sorry,
Duncan Jones.
Jones. I don't know why I said David Jones.
That was
his
dad's
father.
name.
Yeah. But if you just say like, okay, George R. Martin is like, yes, you had, was it not Rings of Power, House of Dragons.
Well, yes, but Rings of Power is on Amazon, so I was like, they're really going to do 2 shows with rings in the title. Yeah. But this is also the network that gave us Invincible and The Boys within like months of each other.
And I need Invincible season 2.
It's coming.
Amazon, get on it.
It's coming. This year?
Hopefully.
No, it is. Like they said it's coming this year.
Okay.
They haven't dated it, but they did that teaser video. I don't know if you saw it.
No, I need to watch it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it is recency bias, but it is to me something that does lend itself very well to.
I agree.
More
so
cinematic.
That's one of those to me where you get into the interesting conflict of like what makes that game so great. And all of the Souls-likes to me is
this is the only other caveat I would say.
What's that?
This would be the perfect one to Black Mirror Banshee it. And Bandersnatch.
Okay.
You come along and you're watching this thing and you choose when you meet this person, do I go down this route? And like maybe the quests aren't as long, but like if you follow this person up, eventually you're going to die and that's it. And you're done. You can no longer progress. You're done. Thank you. Roll credits. Mm-hmm. So you go back through again. If you're not going to make it, if you didn't go as a series, it would work as maybe a series of like choose your own adventure stories, like a Bandersnatch thing that can play out on something like Netflix. I think you could do it as that. That would be interesting.
I was going to say, and obviously you can build in the narrative mechanic of a roguelike or a Souls-like where it's like, yes, you're going to die over and over again. And you could build the stakes into the show of like, oh, dude, he's like so powerful right now. Or the equivalent of like, he's got a lot of runes, dude.
Right.
Hope he doesn't lose his runes in this episode.
Right.
Like, you could work that into the mechanic. But what I was going to say is, by making it a narrative show, do you inherently ruin what's so great about the Souls games, which is the discovery of the world and the fact that nothing is spelled out for you? And like, if you want to figure out what the fuck is going on here, you've got to do the work. Right. And I think there's a way to like do that within a show where it's like, well, what the hell's going on here? I don't understand the rules of any of this. Why am I dying? Like, obviously, end of the pilot, dies, comes back for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Roll credits. Like, it's a hook. It's a hook. You establish this crazy fantasy world, and you're like, oh my God, never seen anything like this. This is a really, like, wild tone. Mm-hmm. And then, you end with that, where it's like you have a crazy battle. He dies.
No, that's my thing, is like, you start out and, like, you have him struggling. Whoever your character is, he is just, like, and he's not even fighting anybody worth talking about. And it's like he stumbles up into the lands between, and he's just hunking around, walking. The next thing you know, it's like that first dragon you encounter shows up, and you're like, oh, done. Like within 2 seconds, he spent the entire episode just like slogging through demon rats and these like, all the different like stitched together bodied guys, and then there's some random knights in there that he encounters, but he doesn't understand what they're saying because he doesn't speak the language of Lernia or wherever, and or Limehold, whatever, and then Limgrave. Then bam, you just, oh, what's this thing? It's a dragon. Oh shit! Done in 2 seconds, and he wakes back up. It's like, and then he wakes up and like you see the Melina, whatever girl that sits down with you is like, hey, I'd like to help you out here, you know. But I think you would have to have that character be more of like a, not so much like a stoic kind of like all knowing, but be more like, hey man, this is how it works here. You're gonna die. You're gonna come back. You know, there's these things that you know are essentially the essence and lifeblood, and if you acquire enough of them, you can physically change your body's limits and like things you have to do. Magic is real. That's all you need to know. Magic is real. The sky is endless as long as you have the runes. Don't lose them, and make sure you spend them wisely. It's a currency as well as a lifeblood. Good luck. Bam. You know.
All
Yeah,
right.
that was my number 5.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put mine in a vague order, I suppose. We'll go super light after the difficulty and the darkness of Elden Ring. Have you played Ollie Ollie World?
Nope.
Are you aware of it at all?
Nope.
Okay, it's the third in the Ollie Ollie trilogy now. It's a side-scrolling skateboard game.
Is that the one you showed me you were playing?
I probably showed it to you at some point. But yeah, started out very like lo-fi graphics. Roll7 is the studio. Super fun approach to skating games. Again, it's a side scroller. Everything is controlled on the twin sticks. It's a PS4 exclusive, I believe. But Ollie Ollie World, I think, is cross-platform on everything now. The first two, I think, were PlayStation exclusive. Could be wrong about that. But yeah, pull up at least the cover of it so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. But yeah, everything is controlled on the 2 analog sticks and the triggers. So all of your trick combinations are all inputs on the sticks. It's very, very fun. Super chill soundtrack. The third one, Ollie Ollie World in the series, introduces a whole new aesthetic and vibe to it. And it's already tailor-made for it. It looks like Adventure Time, essentially. It looks like a Pendleton Ward cartoon. I don't know if you saw the Midnight Gospel, which we talked about like a couple years back, which was Pendleton Ward and Duncan Trussell.
Yes.
That's on Netflix. Very much the same aesthetic. So I want a Cartoon Network show from Pendleton Ward, who's already worked with Cartoon Network many times, and throw Duncan Trussell in the mix. Sure, whatever. And it would be like Rocket Power meets Adventure Time. And it's an extreme sports show, but I think you bring in the awesome soundtrack element of like part of this whole thing is it's just good vibes and a good time. The aesthetic is just like, you know, a candy-colored wonderland, essentially. There's all sorts of fun, funky, interesting characters. A huge component of the game is like constantly changing your outfits, which would be very fun to like play around with visually. But it's all right there, and it seems like it would just be a super fun like hangout kid show. So
yeah, I feel like you could
that's
do
an
that with like
easy
a
sell.
Jet Grind Radio thing too. I wish they would make another
figured
Jet Grind game.
You might mention that one as well. There is something that is a spiritual successor to Jet Grind that comes out this year. I cannot remember the name of it, but if you look it up, like literally type in Jet Grind spiritual successor, it's people from that team, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my number 5, Ollie Ollie World. But yeah, it's essentially an entire world that's based around skating. And like, there's different worlds within the greater world of Radlandia. And it's all just about, you know, being a badass and like, you know, just doing cool tricks to impress your friends and meeting interesting people along the way. Yeah. It'll be a fun kids show.
Yeah.
For the Cartoon Network. What do you got?
This literally you could go a million different ways, and it is probably more than Elden Ring, a more cinematic like game to speak of. But if I'm HBO, I do it right this time. I don't make it about robots on a vacation. I actually put my money where my mouth is, and I do a Red Dead Redemption show.
Okay.
Full bore.
Okay.
My first season is Red Dead Revolver, where you have the young son of everyone basically having to track down and get his revenge.
That's not...
Red Dead Revolver, it was the Vanderlyn gang the leftovers of that. You were one of your people. Well, no, because then they say that Red was like.
You're saying You're talking about the plot of the first Red Dead Redemption.
Or that too. But
Revolver is
I thought
a bunch of different storylines.
I thought Revolver had links to, like, they were still mentioning the Vanderlyn gang in it, if I'm not mistaken.
Dutch may get mentioned in there, but no, Revolver is almost completely disconnected. Through style, like, everything. Yeah. Redemption are the two that are, like, narratively tied together.
Right, yeah. Well, then I would do it, but I would do it.
You could make Revolver into something.
No, well, that's what I would do, is I would take the plot of Revolver, whereas, like, there's some unassuming person that we don't know that was part of this gang that maybe got out, not Marsden, somebody else, and, you know, Dutch, a very older Dutch, has, like, you know, I'm killing off anybody I'm trying to find out where, you know, this person actually, you know, the reason why you're able to set up a farm and have a homestead is your father robbed these guys he was with and let out. And he's been kind of laying low for forever because he's been heard, oh, the Vanderlyn gang's dead. And you're right here at the cusp, like Red Dead Redemption 2 is, of, like, automation meets Old West, the town, all the stuff you're talking about. Just shortly after this. So you would set it after the events of Red Dead Redemption 2, but it would be someone from the Red Dead Redemption, the game, who kind of made it out and didn't follow them to Saint Denis and all that stuff. And it's a, you know, whoever, you know, it's the son having to track down his father's killer. It's like all this other stuff. Along the way, he runs into people like, you know, we find out that, what is the guy's, I can't remember your character's name that you play. Who's a character in 2? Because there is John Marsden that's in it, but I'm trying to think of the other guy's name that you...
Arthur Morgan.
Morgan. No. You find out that Morgan survived Red Dead 2. And he's just as pissed with them as well. And he's still older. Maybe has a cough, you know, a little consumption going on. And he's the guy that basically is like, if you want to do this, I'm going to tell you how to do it right. And then, like, you kind of team up with him. And you either put a gang back together, or it's just you and him taking on actual bounties for these guys. But you don't go after Dutch. You're picking off henchmen left and right, like the crazy ones that from the end of the second one that are still alive.
Okay.
And you throw in some more people along the way. Yeah.
Showrunner, casting.
For the sake of casting,
I mean, if you don't got it, you don't got it.
I don't. I mean, this is my idea. I didn't get really. I was really fucking busy at work, so I didn't get to write a lot of it down. But I feel like there's plenty of people you can throw in. Like, I feel like if I'm gonna do the son, I don't want to say you go unknown with just like unknown cast trying to make it for a big show like that. I don't know who the anchor and the hook is of, like, the bad villain Dutch or, like, the young kid Red, whatever. I don't know. I can't think of, like, off the top of my head who I would want as, like, someone I know can anchor something that's like, okay, this is gonna be a steady thing for them that, like, if I put them in a series, I'm good. You know what I mean? I mean, you could, depending on the age where you want to start with this kid to be, you could, I mean, I feel like you could sub in, I don't really know, man, never mind, I don't really know good kid actors.
It's all good.
Yeah.
We don't have to do
him. Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah. Saul Goodman. Get him on it.
All right. This one's, I don't know. Go with me here. One of my favorite games of all time. Love both of them. Still hope we get a third. Or just something else from the studio. Hotline Miami.
Yeah.
Go with me here. I want Shudder to do it. As a Shudder original. Because I think they would have the balls to do it the way it needs to be done.
Okay.
And it needs to be like a surrealist black comedy / nightmare horror dreamscape weird movie. Okay?
Like a Sorry to Bother You crazy level?
I mean, no,
like
I hadn't
on steroids?
I hadn't thought of Boots Riley, but that's interesting. No, I was going with a guy who I've been waiting to make another movie, and a frequent collaborator of his, the DiCaprio or De Niro to his Scorsese, if you will. Joel Petrakis,
Oh yeah,
who's done Buzzard,
and the one
and he did Relaxer.
That's it. Yeah.
And he did The Alchemist Cookbook.
Mm-hmm.
And I would want Josh Burge, who's the lead in Relaxer, to be kind of our, the varsity jacket protagonist who gets drawn into this, underworld of mayhem, etc. And yeah, I feel like they would nail the weirdness of it, and it needs to be, it needs to have a vibe, which Petrakis is very good at, and yeah, it needs to just, be dark and menacing, but fun and weird all at the same time. And it needs to be ultra violent. And that is something that I haven't necessarily seen him execute action sequences, but I think it's something he could play around with.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see their take on it. But yeah, I feel like Shudder's the place to do it. It's that's never going to be an Amazon show. That's never going to be on HBO.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
could see that.
Hotline Miami on Shudder. If you're not familiar with Hotline Miami, go play them. Top-down murder simulators, basically, with like very minimal graphics and the best soundtracks ever.
Oh yeah.
So good. I know the instinct is like, oh, Nicholas Winding Refn, right? And I'm like, no, I want him to keep doing his own shit. I don't need him like.
Hotline Denmark.
It's like that game exists because of the movies he made.
Right.
Like I don't need him to. I don't need the Ouroboros of
right.
all of that. No, thank you. All right, number 3.
Number 3. I want Mr. Michael Bay.
Okay, to come to television.
To come to Well, no. You know what? Let's change this, Michael. I want Mr. Michael Mann to make me a Kane and Lynch TV show. I want like a Stephen
What a
Ogg.
full Big Chicago who was just like, I can't do him. But he's just like a big Kane Lynch fan. Like,
All one of the stories I'm wanting to do. I can't do Chicago.
yeah, we can't do him. We can't.
Or Chicago. One of the stories I want to do. Yeah, and I can't do it. I can't.
You can't sustain it. That's
You're not
sure.
from Chicago.
Okay, yeah, but Kane and Lynch they did 2 of these, right?
2 of these, yes. And I say you do the plot of the first one, and you. In my head, the Lynch character, like he needs to be like a Stephen Ogg, kind of.
I mean,
or
he
like
is proto Trevor from GTA 5, basically.
Essentially. But then I was also thinking Kevin Gage Heat.
Yeah.
Waingro. Like that.
I mean,
just
I'm
that
always
look.
down for getting that guy more work.
Yeah. So that, my only trouble
Is he
is...
still alive?
Yeah, he's out of prison. He's
Okay.
got stuff coming up next couple years.
Just making sure.
TBA. But yeah, Kevin Gage or a Stephen Ogg type, or even like weirdly, this is just type. Stephen Ogg / Bill Moseley, like wiry, just like crazy type, like obviously psychotic. But then you have the reserved more. And if he was younger, I would say like Michael Mann, not Mike, yeah, Michael Mann. Madsen, that's what I'm thinking. But like I don't know who a younger like version of him is. Who I could put in as like the lead that could anchor it.
That would be Lynch. Wait, who's the weird one? Kane's the crazy.
Lynch is the
crazy one.
Kane is the family man.
Yeah.
That has wife and daughter kidnapped and all that. But that opens up like you've got the 7, this group. You've got crazy guys they've got to go fight, and you can pull a like let's try and say fuck you, John Wick. And try and top it, but you could also like. To me, I was this close to putting this one on the list, but you could even like throw it together. Did you ever play Army of Two with the 2 giant mercenaries? Something along those lines, because we got one that one is like a big beefy dude, the other one's like more fit and agile. But I like the idea of like you're thrown in this situation with this dude you don't know you're in prison with. You get taken out, and then it's like you owe these people money. He just happens to be here with you. You're kind of stuck together. You get weapons and you got to go. And you got to start robbing banks and doing crazy shit to just do it. I don't think, I just don't know if he has the range to do it. I totally could see, but again, visually, I don't think I could see like a Jason Statham doing this kind of thing. But I'm just trying to think of like a, I don't really know like an actor based off, and I'm just basing it off of like character models. What I see, I'm sure you could put anybody in the role and they could manage it just fine, aesthetically and like what that character's up against and whatnot. But I don't really have a pick for the Kane character. But I do think Michael Mann would do an amazing job of just like ball. But that's the thing with this one, just let him do like what he does with like action sequences between like Miami Vice and Heat and all this shit. Just let him, and Black Hat, just let it all go crazy. But we get it as real and as gritty as we possibly could from him. And I just think that shit will be badass. You got the Tokyo angle of it all, you know, so there's plenty of him to play around with.
That's the second one, right?
No, they're actually in Shanghai. They go to Tokyo in the first one.
I think I remember that set piece, the shootout in like the temple area and everything. Mm-hmm. Kind of like garden.
I gotta see if those have been updated where you can like get them off the offline or something. Because I think
I do remember that was a property that was kicked around as a movie. I just checked the IMDb to see if they ever had like a director attached to it, but
and that's what I think I did see that. But like again, if you want to do true garbage crime, you just get some first time director to direct a TV show, and you let Jerry Butler be Kane.
Sure.
Or you let Jerry Butler be Kane, and you let Michael Mann have a chance to work with him finally, and we're good to go.
Gavin's dream.
Yeah.
All right.
The only better dream would be if they get Bay to direct the final episode.
It could happen.
Jerry Butler and Michael Bay and
two Michaels.
Jerry
two
Butler
Michaels
and the two
Jerry?
Michaels. Oh, come on, man.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. I'm going back to animation. For the strict purposes of this would be incredibly expensive otherwise and would be an impossible sell to do it the way it needs to be done. Team Ico's Shadow of the Colossus.
I don't know, man. That would be kind of neat.
There are 16 colossi, one for every episode. And as you'll recall, the only language spoken in this is like the language of the gods or whatever force or entity you're speaking to in the temple, and it's subtitled. But that's it. That's it.
So it's like your one show you were talking about, the prehistoric one thing you're doing.
You see where I'm going with this.
But you could totally do that live action though, or like semi-live action.
You could, but the beauty, this is where we get into the Elden Ring conversation and the Souls-like conversation in general. What's beautiful about Shadow of the Colossus, and this is the process of adaptation. What's beautiful about Shadow of the Colossus is it does communicate this entire lore of this universe and this world, but it does it all visually. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, would they greenlight a show of this scale in live action? Even though obviously it would be very effects heavy, but to me it needs to be a lot of like, we're practically building huge chunks of these things. Whether the ultimate overall thing is a big CG creation, but we need physical, like practical things.
Tufts of hair that you're climbing up.
And there's a way to,
yeah.
For those unfamiliar, I feel like with some of these games we need to actually like spell out a little bit of what they're about. But Shadow of the Colossus, basically, your love has died, seemingly, or has fallen ill, and you bring what I think they're dead. You bring their corpse to this temple, it's basically revealed like if you want to bring them back, you got to hunt down and kill 16 of these colossi. There's no other enemies in the game. Each one is literally just you set out, you spend a huge chunk of time just tracking them down, platforming your way to their location, and then you got to start the next leg of it, which is how the fuck do I take one of these giant things down? Something that is literally like, 40, 50 times my height. And I mean, that could be an episode. It's just each one of them is a battle. But again, that's why in my head it's like it should be animation and it should be Genndy Tartakovsky because he knows how to tell a story visually, knows how to use hardly any dialogue, and could build in those moments of visual storytelling where it's like we realize what's going on and what's at stake here. And you could have organically, again, if you're expanding things, we looked at like how The Last of Us has done that thus far, but you could have backstory of like their relationship, these two characters, like what's at stake for him that's building up in the background this whole time. You could introduce some other side characters, even though that would kind of break the rules in the world, and that feeling of like pure isolation and just like feeling really, really small that game nails so well. That one has been remastered for the PS4, and it's incredible, and I highly recommend it if you've never played it. I could have said Ico, their first game, but if I pitched another, okay, it's basically another lone wolf and cub story, but it's in a weird fantasy world. I mean, they're popular right now. Maybe people would take me up on it. But... All right.
Okay.
You're number 4?
My number 2.
2?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're counting down. That's how that works. Sorry.
And I went back and forth with this, and now that I'm thinking of it, he could totally happen. Well, I don't know. It depends. I want someone to make Max Payne 3 into a TV show.
All right. Well, we're not going to table it. We're just going to talk. Give me this is on my list.
Okay.
You just want Max Payne 3.
I want Max Payne 3, but I want to take the formulaic, let's take one episode and let's take you back and let's talk to you about it, because there are flashback elements in that game of why he actually left New York. It has nothing to do with the first 2 games, but it shows you what exactly happened to make him say, all right, I probably need to get the hell out of Dodge, get down to Sao Paulo or wherever the hell he's at, and go from there. But I feel like you have a lot to play with there, with like, there's this whole other life this guy had. You don't, and the thing is, it was 2012. Okay? It's been at least 10 years since the 3rd game came out. In that time, we have gotten the god-awful Mark Wahlberg movie.
Fuck that movie.
Fuck that movie. And right up its ass. And, so I feel like it's far enough away that like most people, when they see it, they'd be like, wait a minute, it's vaguely familiar. But it's not something. But if nobody played the 3rd one, and they don't, like, if they only know Max Payne, Mark Wahlberg, Max Payne, Mark Wahlberg, like they don't know about this 3rd game for whatever reason, it lets you do a lot with very little. Like you have a ton you can pack into multiple seasons with a plotline that I know does go, like there is a lot in there, but it also seems relatively like kind of, okay, there's certain couple levels, people are getting kidnapped, you find out, you could, it's, get into it. But like,
I like your idea of basically taking 3 as the superstructure and like flashing back to the other 2.
Mm-hmm.
I was going a little more conventional, which is that I would just do 3 seasons, 1 game per season. And you get the kind of, I want it on HBO. I wanted to get the prestigious of the prestige.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know they're doing Perry Mason right now. So to me, this is the gritty modernist, stay in the noir vein. Mm-hmm. We do the first one pretty straightforward. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second one allows you to move into a little bit of a, tragic romance. We go deeper into the noir as well. But then when you get to 3, well, all of a sudden it's fucking Man on Fire. Like,
yeah,
it's Max Payne's Man on Fire down in Mexico.
Scott Glenn's still around. We can use him, right?
I'm saying, like, I mean, I would like the build to that the same way you do in the games, where it's like, and then of course, like you said, 3 has the flashbacks to like here's why he had to leave New York, etc. But I'm like, you could even build that into like the tail end of the fall of Max Payne, because that, like, not, I mean, spoilers for these games that are like over 10 years old,
yeah.
But in 3 you have that flashback sequence, which is basically you killed a mobster's son, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why you had to ultimately leave. But that happens after the events of 2, which is the fall of Max Payne.
Yeah, but
it's not like that's why he. None of that's connected.
No. Yeah. It's a completely different thing. You did, yeah. and that's the only thing that I liked and hated about it. It's like, well, the events of this other 2 game have no bearing on the 3rd one. You just kind of made up this thing that like is the
They
real
wanted-
reason why he left.
I mean, they wanted to make Man on Fire the video game, and they did it, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Max Payne 3 is one of the best games ever made. I fucking love it. I mean,
I played the online version of that
they
shit.
finally-
the Rockstar online
they
version of that
finally
shit.
figured out their shooting mechanic. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't get the shooting mechanic in GTA 5 without Max Payne 3.
Right.
Like you see, it's one of the building block things. I love that franchise. I love that character. I have to ask, who were you going to cast?
I have no fucking idea.
Christopher Abbott is the answer. I thought about it all day.
Possessor?
Yes.
I could see it.
Because, again, I know your instinct is like, oh, Max is old and grizzled, right? But it's like, no, he's not. In the first game, he's fucking 30. Like 33, 35.
So can I go through this with you? Because I was just curious. This was... okay. This was added last year as a potential pick of who fans thought they could cast as Max Payne. And I'm not talking 3. I'm talking like this original, like... I don't want to... Like the original photo. You remember what he looks like young, right?
Of course.
All right. Top vote, Keanu Reeves.
Too obvious.
Tied for the next amount of votes, Tom Jane, Carl Urban, and Harrison Ford. I don't think Harrison Ford, because the picture they have him in.
Well, how old is this list?
I don't know. The story was posted in 2022, so I don't know. And the
Okay.
pictures they're using are a lot of older people. Tom Hardy's on there.
Nope.
John Hamm. Clive Owen. Weirdly, somebody voted for Bob Odenkirk. Guy Pearce is on here twice under 2 different names, misspelled both times. But one from back in the day that I thought could work would have been like, if they'd have got to Michael Biehn early on, I could definitely see
for
him
sure.
as like a young Max Payne.
But that's not what we're doing.
Right.
Now, I like John Hamm. I like that.
I think there's
I hadn't
something
really
there.
considered Hamm, but
The only thing I was
'cause you
thinking, what about
immediately-
Krasinski?
I don't
No,
like John
you don't see
Krasinski.
I don't want that guy. Something.
I just don't like Krasinski in general. Like,
Hey, Johnny, how are you?
he's not somebody who excites me about being in things.
Okay. I like when he directs.
Sure, he's fine.
You didn't like A Quiet Place?
It was all right.
All right, fine.
Initially I was like, the voice is like something I need, like, and James McCaffrey, you know, who was on Rescue Me, of course. If they had just made the movie when around the time the game
Right.
came out and cast him, like, he visually would have worked for it too.
Right.
I think he's aged out of it now, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But Christopher Abbott, to me, again, Possessor's your main kind of like sticking point. I saw him on Girls for years, of
Yeah.
course. He's been in a bunch of other stuff. Fantastic actor, one of the best of his generation. He plays Haunted pretty well.
Yeah.
And for the first, like, you know, for the first one in particular, that's what you need for this. You need kind of edgy or whatever. The instinct everybody's going towards with like Tom Hardy and stuff, it's like, Max is not like a fucking jacked dude to me. He's more of a lithe, like, you know, tall, a little bit on the scrawnier side, a little more wiry.
Yeah, but by the time you get to that, I think if you
But I think you build him up through the seasons.
Right. And again, in
age
my
him up
head,
a bit.
just doing my 3 angle, I'm thinking of like Tom Hardy, the way he looked with the shaved head and like Taboo. And I'm just like, that could be Max then. Because, you know, for a little bit,
I saw a lot of people saying Bernthal, which just seems too obvious.
Yeah.
It's just too obvious.
Yeah. You guys know there's
Dirty
people
cop.
talking about me? Street talk? Yo, man, you took our money. Goddamn right I did. Oh, come on, Cap, you can't do that shit. Yeah, no, that would be perfect too. If it is HBO, you have all the reckoning. It's like, so you kind of have that angle of like, well, did this happen to him because maybe he was a dirty cop? It's like, no, he wasn't. He was actually an honest by the book. Because isn't his wife's father was a cop too, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing. And it was like, that's the one thing that just really pissed me off about the movie, was that they tried to tie it in that like, oh, it's all connected to this whole thing. And I was like,
they botched all of it so hard.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg has fucked up two video game franchises at this point that they just tried to shove him into.
He just needs to stick to being real people.
Okay. we each have one left.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's the same thing.
Probably isn't.
Probably isn't.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think you should go.
I just went, and you said we were going to talk about mine. What's yours?
Oh, did I save one? Hold on.
You might have saved one.
No, I already said all of mine. But yeah, no, I have my final one.
What's your final one?
But you don't think it's the... You have two left, or you have one?
I have one left. Max Payne was my second. I have one more.
But you don't want to say what it is.
Well, I know that it's not what you're thinking.
Well, how do you know that you know what I think that I know?
Because I know you're not as big a fan of Tenchu Stealth Assassin as I am.
I knew it was going to be one of two things. All right, fine.
Well, what was it going to be besides Tenchu?
I mean, I know everybody's instinct is to make this into a movie or try to make it into a film franchise. But it just seems to me that Metal Gear Solid clearly needs to be a television show.
Yeah.
Did it even enter? You didn't even think about it?
I know
you said you were trying to avoid things that are cinematic. I mean, here's the thing. It's like...
There was already enough stuff
it's
about
like what, no, but it's like when you read a book and people are like, they could never do this. This is the unfilmable novel. It's like, that's what playing Metal Gear is like, where you're like, this is the coolest movie that you could never, ever make, right?
Out of respect for what happened to Mr. Kojima, I would never want it to be commercially successful on that front because that's his. I don't care what anybody says. That's his.
We talked about this off mic vaguely. My instinct here initially was HBO, because I'm like, oh, I wanted to get that. And I'm like, no, there's no way. Because to get anywhere near the weirdness, to preserve the core essence of the weirdness, it couldn't be on HBO. It just couldn't. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately pivoted to FX. Okay? My initial thought for a showrunner director was clearly like, oh, NWR. I'm like, the only person who ever, when I've been watching something of his, I'm like, well, this is kind of the closest thing to if like Kojima directed something, like sequences of it.
That would be my only caveat. If you let Kojima direct the entire series,
and again, I was
then
going
I'd be
with
fine with it.
The practicalities, unless like again they do some sort of mea culpa between him and Konami. I was like, that's the sticking point of all of this. So I'm like, there's no way NWR would direct this if it was like, I mean, that's his buddy, that's his close friend.
Yeah.
There's no way he would direct it unless he was like, oh well, I could save his vision, sort of thing. And I was like, okay. So
and obviously we made Mads Mikkelsen Solid Snake, right?
Well, I want to get into a whole Snake debate with you because I'm like, there's the whole age range. Yeah. There is the movie that is supposedly still happening that has a director and has a star. I think we've talked about it.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac.
Yes. But yeah, no, I have no casting. I just wanted to point out that I think they've already fucked this up. Oscar Isaac should have been Nathan Drake in Uncharted. I've said it.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. They totally missed the boat on that. They should have made him age appropriate. Should have been Oscar Isaac. His energy is perfect for that. Visually, I get it. And I love Oscar Isaac as an actor. But
Carl Urban. Solid Snake.
I think you're really onto something there, actually. And it hadn't clicked for me, but I was like, yes, dude, because there's got to be
symmetry of the face. If you take the facial hair away,
it's not even the look, dude. Anybody can be augmented enough, like just through you throw the suit on them.
Yeah.
But no, I was like, how do you get that tone? Like, how do we get
David Hayter?
Yes, that like I'm kind of doing a parody of an action guy, but I'm playing it very earnestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of taking the piss out of it at the same time. And I'm like, I think Carl Urban kind of could nail it just by like slightly
leaning
modulating like what he's been doing on The Boys for the last couple of years. I think that's a good pick.
And I'm a big fan of, and nobody wants to do this because it's this whole rights thing and who's doing the role, but if you can make it Oscar Isaac, just dub the fucking thing with David Hayter. Just let him do the fucking voice.
I mean, yeah.
It's never going to happen,
okay.
But yeah.
To keep the weirdness intact, and somebody who I was like, maybe he's randomly a fan of the video games, and somebody who has kind of made his bones in the world of TV on adaptation, of taking somebody else's aesthetic and what makes them them and using the component parts to do his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
The man's name is Noah Hawley,
Yeah, I could see that.
who of course did Fargo and Legion.
Yeah.
Legion's a fucking weird show.
Yeah, I know.
It's still the weirdest thing Marvel has ever let get produced in their name.
Yeah. I think they were thinking nobody wanted to see it. Dan Stevens, Solid Snake?
I thought you might go there.
No, Dan Stevens, Liquid Snake.
No, because I was thinking about this too. No, Liquid is so Alexander Skarsgård, bro.
Yeah.
It's just right there in front of you. Now you know who Dan Stevens could play in heavy makeup, and I would be all
Frank
about
Yeager.
this. Okay, never mind. Okay, I like it.
Who do you think she should play?
Well, now I don't want to say.
Well, no, go
Because
ahead.
now I'm trying to go. I'm trying to think back through this of who I actually wanted. I mean, he's like the linchpin of the whole thing.
Roy Campbell?
Revolver Ocelot, bro.
Oh, Revolver Ocelot. Revolver Ocelot. Bryan Cranston.
Could be interesting. I do like him with the longer hair, in your honor. Why did I immediately think Christoph Waltz as Revolver Ocelot?
Yeah. He could work for
Because
that.
he's got to be old in the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is this series going to encompass the I fight my dad twice and then I
See, that's what I think could be interesting, is because in the similar way you were pitching with 3 for Max Payne, I'm kind of secretly like, I think the way to pitch this show is fucking Snake Eater, the series.
Yeah.
And that's your intro, actually. It's Big Boss, and it's not even Solid Snake.
Right. Then you're going
It's
to
also secret. I mean, next to 5, it's my favorite.
Yeah. But like, so you do the boss, you Snake Eater, the boss's betrayal.
But then again, I want the epic sprawling, through the sands of time. I want everything that Metal Gear is. So that's why I kind of want, season 1 is Shadow Moses. Season 2, Sons of Liberty. Season 3, we all of a sudden get to flash back in time and do Snake Eater. 4 would be wild as fuck, and then same thing with 5. I'm like, the other reason I picked FX is I'm like, I feel like have the commitment long term to, even if something is not consistently lighting the world on fire ratings, they will let it go. And they will let Noah Hawley shows go too, because Fargo has not been a hit for a long time now. But like, they're letting him do a season 5 with fucking John Hamm. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that one's like an actor's show. Like, people see the work people do, and they're like, oh, I got to work with that guy. So when he comes to the next, like, this season I want to bring this dude in. They're like, he'll do it? Yeah. Here's the money.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
And again, I guess Legion proved to me that, like, he's got the weirdness in it. And Fargo, obviously, to a certain extent. And I'm like, you need some of that energy. And I don't know if I honestly don't trust anybody other than Kojima to do it. But
Yeah.
I don't see a world where he legally is ever going to be allowed to. I just want him to direct a movie, period.
Yeah.
Like an original screenplay, ideally.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the Death Stranding movie, which I think we might be. I think he's secretly shooting, like, a movie while he's making Death Stranding 2.
Yeah.
I think he might be doing something weird in his new studio and shit. See what happens. That was my big play. So tell me, what network are you pitching? The other classic stealth franchise, the one that, they were like neck and neck for a little bit, and then one just kind of completely eclipsed the other.
Yeah.
Very quickly. But those released the same year, right?
If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
or Tenchu might be the year before Metal Gear Solid.
Right.
Maybe.
Tenchu 2, Rise 3, and then you had Z on the Xbox, and that was it. I've just always thought the idea of like spending time, because yes, it's been a parody. The canon films have done them to death, but I cannot think of a mainstream thing that has like set you full bore in the mindset and the like the role of like what it means to be quote unquote a ninja, as far as like they like people hated them, like they weren't the mystical lord thing. It was like if you were a ninja, you were like a scum, you were a fucking punk, like you're gonna come attack somebody in the middle of the night like a fucking coward.
Right.
But the idea that like this lord who rules over everyone and is supposedly loved has to implore the services of this clan of ninja who have basically taken children since they are young and done nothing but train them to be, you know, unemotional, silent, masters of the sword, just on the par with samurai, but they're quiet and they're in the shadows and you would never know they were with you. Like that scene in The Last Samurai when it's like you kind of hear something and then you kind of notice them and it's like there ain't just one, there's a ton of these ninjas up here and they're quiet as fuck.
Yeah.
That, but just one dude. And I mean, I can see the level designs in each one and the way that is set up, because it is still a level based thing. You have a gripping political narrative in feudal Japan of how is this lord going to maintain order when all this shit's going on. And it's a known fact that like he uses the Inazuma Ninja clan as, you know, leverage to get what he needs when he can't do it diplomatically. And he's not going to send his people to war. So you have that political thing going back and forth, obviously ending with daughter being kidnapped towards the finale. And the only problem is I don't know how you pit having a male and a female, because I would love to, if you did, each of them having something to do, but without crisscrossing every episode, intertwining each episode. But how do I give you both? Because they both have unique backgrounds and stories as to how they became. There is no love there, which is my favorite thing. They aren't like, it's not like, oh, that's the girlfriend or that's the wife. It's like they're equals on the battlefield and they both respect each other, but they have no sexual chemistry or desire to do that with each other. And I like that Warriors Code aspect of it. And I think it would be something interesting to see, because it still seems like that's kind of where things will eventually break down to. It's like, there's a man and a woman, whether they're doing the same thing or not, eventually they're probably going to wind up trying to fuck. It's like, that's nothing anywhere near this, like whatever it is. So you have that ability to like say, yes, they may have been considered like the scum, the cowards or whatever, but they at least held each other in high regard, as far as like, it didn't matter to him that she was a female. She could do what he could do, but just with a different method. He used a sword. She uses 2 katanas or like, you know, smaller blades or whatever. So, you know, there's a lot to unpack with that. I think you could literally throw up any of the Asian actors who have been like in the mainstream in the last 5-6 years, especially the males. I think any one of them could just as easily fall into that role. There is not a lot there other than the scar on the eye from a child, and half the movie you've got, you know, a face cover. And the same thing, I love it and hate it. You could also intertwine this and just do a Ghost of Tsushima film, and I would just be just as happy. You get John Woo to direct a giant sweeping epic about the invasion.
I don't know if the Tenchu, I don't know if the fandom's still there for that one.
It's not, and that's why you don't have to call it that. But like, I've just always thought that first game story deserved more than just the 10 levels it got. Because you understand, I started playing that right around the time I watched Leon the Professional for the first time. So the idea of like this, you know, quiet assassin, does the right thing, makes sure that the child gets out alive and whatever, and ultimately sacrifices himself for the quote unquote greater good. Like that, just like, I was like, damn dude, like none of my heroes live. They all die. Like it wasn't until like, wasn't probably until I watched The Searchers I was like, oh, that's what heroes do. Like they just leave. But like all of mine, they all die. They don't like leave. They just die, you know? And it's one of those that's like, Even like Breathless. Like, I love that movie. Fucking dude dies in the end. You know what I mean? Ideally, it's not nice. I mean, I'm not saying he's a hero. Like, well, he's something to look up to. He's kind of a scumbag. He murdered a cop, whatever. But all of that transpired with playing the game and like getting into more pop culture stuff. It all kind of resonated on this idea of like, this is a hero. They will choose to sacrifice himself. And it just was amazing to me that it was happening in all these different areas of pop culture that I was looking, books, movies, all this different shit, video games. And so to play on that, and then if you could give me a second or third season to, you know, jump back to when they were younger and show me kind of how they became who they were more in depth. Like, we build into their backstory in 2, Birth of the Assassin. To then in 3, basically say like, okay, well, this person who we thought had been trapped in this cave and whatever, he's come back now after all this time in a time of need where like it's the political turmoil is even worse than ever. And it's no longer a secret that he's out. It's like he has to openly come out of the shadows and be a part of what this Lord is doing in order to ensure that his rule remains. And you can always tie it in with like you could tie it into actual events like the Samurai Uprising, the class wars, all that different stuff. But I don't know. It's one of my favorite games. I don't think people talk about it anymore. Obviously, Sekiro, people, you know, that's essentially the Tenchu team again. But I do feel like if there's any other franchise I could get to Resident Evil it and give me an update on each one, I would. There's no telling amount of like. They better hope I don't win the $300 million lottery, because I'll be at their door every day. How much is it going to take you to revamp all these? I don't care what it is. Money's no object, sir. You know, 100 million? Jeeves? Write them in a check. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. But yeah. And there's tons of others. There's so many I thought about it'd be great, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't have that much affinity to like Fallout, like in BioShock. I looked at a lot of lists. A lot of people are like Mass Effect. I'm like, okay. I have no attention. I don't know, like.
I kind of tried to. I mean, like, there's an endless array of sci-fi.
You could do KOTOR for Disney Plus and have just Knights of the Old Republic.
Again, we could just do this again at another time. And I was kind of thinking when Last of Us wraps up its season, maybe we come back and we do the inverse and we talk about IP that we would like to become a video game /
Waterworld.
Okay, save it. Don't give them all the gold at once. Jesus Christ.
How old can the IP be?
Be as old as you want it to. As old as you are, brother.
To live and die in LA.
I was going to say.
That'd be a great one.
But yeah, and I feel like we'll be able to get more into like mechanics, etc. On that. That would be fun. But also, something to keep in mind, maybe our favorite non-traditional IP, does that make sense to you? Where it's a game that's like, this wasn't a movie tie-in,
right,
but it's this character and I love it.
What's an example?
An example would be like the Blade game, for instance.
Yeah,
like that. I'm not saying I love that game. I remember I was very excited to play it when it came out. It was all right. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not the plot of the movie.
But you would like to see that plot.
It's not the aesthetic of the movie. No, I'm not even saying that. No. I'm just saying we talk about, because there are so many, to me, interesting instances of those sort of games. There's a big one that I don't want to say because it's my number one. But, or like Jet Li's Rise to Honor, where it's like we're trying to make a movie.
I know what
as a game. Is. Of course you know what it is.
Yeah.
I want to do a whole episode just so we can talk about it.
Yeah,
all right.
That's fine.
Something to think
we
about.
Could make dude, we should make that movie now. With as old as he is now, he could still move. He's still got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right.
$20 to the person who figures out what we're talking about.
$20 to the person who lets me know how I can physically play that stuff. Yeah. Okay. Until next time, I've been Noah.
And I've been Gavin.
And we've been the Blanchard Brothers.
And we've been saying what you've been playing. It's so terrible. I didn't understand a fucking thing he said.